The question we get asked most is, why do we move to Panama, especially coming from some place like the United States? Here are our top reasons.
Yeah, so here where we live, we have just a few minutes, to the beach, maybe 25 minutes to the mountains, and about hour and a half to the city. That's going to be shorter once they finish the freeway.
And of course, we chose our location to live as priority to those things. So the beach was the first priority, being able to get there within 10 minutes. So that can kind of ensure that we maybe can go to the beach 2-3 times a week.
Sometimes daily.
Sometimes daily. And the mountains, of course, would be second priority, 25 minutes, so a little perfect for weekend trips. And of course, the city, which neither of us care to live in, and we just like cities for a place to visit, to maybe buy things we can't find out here in the country.
Yeah, entertainment, restaurants. Yeah. If you want a good food, you have to go to the city.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah, and since we cook most of our food at home, restaurants and all of that also isn't a large priority. But it's when we do choose to spend the money, we want the restaurant to be of the highest quality. And thankfully, we've found some really great restaurants in Panama City.
Yes, I also wanted to mention that we were city people at first.
No, you were a city person.
City girl. Yeah, I was a city girl at first. I lived in a capital city in Bratislava, Slovakia. And it just, wasn't quite what I wanted. So we changed for a different lifestyle. It's kind of like evolved itself over time.
Yeah. Another reason is overall inflation. Even though we've seen inflation over the last few years affect everywhere in the world, things that we've, in our life, the staples like beef, chicken, eggs, milk, those sort of things, were getting to be at prices that were just unaffordable for us in the United States. When we left, we would see in the stores in Lake Tahoe a pound of ground beef for $12.99, and a dozen eggs for also about $11-12. And as a family of 6 now, that kind of who our main food source is an animal-based diet, that kind of prices is just it's just
unaffordable and unsustainable. I mean, here, if we buy ground meat in Ray, which we find to be the best ground meat of what is being offered, we paid under $9 per kilogram, which is something over $4 per pound compared to the price Bryan mentioned. So
yeah, and Ray is a supermarket.
Yes, a fancy supermarket.
Yep, and but you also, this is another nice thing about what Panama offers is that there's many supermarkets. They're called mini supers, and they are just located all over the place because Panama was mainly a country where people mostly walk or take buses or taxis. And so there are these little markets everywhere, and they all offer the staples. So they all have eggs, they all have milk, they all have ground beef or other cuts of beef and pork and chicken,
rice, beans.
So the staples are
diapers
everywhere and affordable, and that was really important to us as far as items and goods that were affected by inflation.
So here in Panama, for a 5-bedroom house, we spend about $115 in electricity per month. The government makes sure the price of the propane gas for the population is affordable, so you can buy those mini tanks in the mini super for just $5 for a refill, not for the tank itself. And that will last us for how long? How often do you change?
I feel like it's usually 2.5 weeks.
Yes. So under $10, yes, in gas.
We figure we're spending about $10 a month in gas.
Yes, and we have a gas stove, oven, and a dryer. And because we have 4 children, we wash and dry a lot of clothes.
Most of our decisions were being thought of as future-proof.
No matter what happens, if there are any crises going on in the world.
Yes, because the world is in such so many changes happening and so much uncertainty, we felt that the Panama Canal offered a little bit of stability and of Panama because it is such an important commodity to the world. We're thinking that the world in general wouldn't let anything horrible happen to Panama because that would mean the fall of the canal. And so that was some of our reasoning as well.
So it's sort of a leverage for Panama, hopefully for the future, then that the whole world would want the Panama Canal to stay safe.
Yep. So one of the main reasons, especially for me, was population density. Sylvie mentioned earlier that she was a city girl, so she's used to a dense population around her. But I grew up in Central Valley, California, so I'm pretty much grew up in the country with orchards and lots of space and land around me. And just growing up in the U.S. in general, you can take car trips and drive for miles and miles and miles without, seeing anything. And I like that kind of space. I noticed even while living in Europe for a short while, I was surprised at how there isn't so much, things aren't spread apart as much as they are in the U.S. It is quite a bit smaller in Europe, that space between villages and cities.
Yeah, you never get the vastness, the expanse, the expense, of the space and the nature like you can experience in the States.
So literally when it was coming to places like Panama, I would just, I would type in and look for population density statistics of certain places, and also just look at overall satellite images and maps and just kind of see if that population density, how spread apart it is throughout the whole country. And that's what made us choose some place like Panama as opposed to some place like Florida that also has a similar climate, is we just don't want to be around that many people. And Panama in general has about 4 million people for the whole country, with 2 large metropolitan areas, Panama City and David, and then a couple of smaller Santiago, Peñanome, Coronado, La Chorrera, these other little
bigger towns.
So there's not a whole lot, and then everything else in between is just a lot of space, and that's
but most of the population is concentrated obviously in Panama City.
Yep.
There you can find anything you need. Panama is generally a very safe country. This was a very important criteria for us because we have children. We wanted to be able to go out and about without the need to worry about the safety, getting robbed, or anything else.
Exactly. We heard in our tour of Panama that we did before choosing to move here, we were mainly hearing that most crimes were opportunistic. So maybe
little theft here and there,
thefts or break-ins, and then we heard even more specifically a lot of times this can happen between because of maybe disgruntled employees or workers that you maybe have that feel cheated or that you did them wrong in some way. So even then, that kind of crime is still relatively low.
Yeah, so as long as you're being respectful to the local population and you're just not being unreasonable, I don't think there is no need to worry about the safety.
Yeah.
Everybody we came across is generally really nice.
At least your chances are lowered, yes.
Yes, and even they don't really seem to be very jealous to how much the international people have, because we obviously have much more than most of the population, but it doesn't seem to bother them like they would want to, steal, unless a few individuals here and there. They just even if they see our big car, they're super excited because they don't really see such a big car too often, and they love it.
Yeah, the feeling of envy doesn't feel so strong as it has been in other places we've been. For example, even in Bratislava, we felt that the people were always looking at others who had more with a sort of envy,
jealousy and comparing themselves.
And so we don't feel we get as much of that here as you would expect in some place that dramatically has quite a separation of class. And so another part of the safety is actually the weather. We were looking at places in the United States that could offer a similar lifestyle, which we'll get into later, but like the housing and the land and the space and the climate mostly. So places like Florida or even places like Oklahoma, of course, those both come with weather conditions that are less than desirable. So obviously in Panama, there's no hurricanes, which I find interesting. It's just kind of the way geographically it's laid out.
Yeah, you go a little bit more north And you get the hurricanes. Even Hawaii, where we lived before, had hurricanes.
Yep.
But here, nothing. You get some tropical storms here and there, but they usually pass quite quickly.
Yeah. So it is different. Yeah. In Hawaii, we would, of course, there's a season where everyone's a little bit on edge. You never are quite sure if you're going to get hit by the next big hurricane. And then, of course, in Oklahoma, the tornadoes just look wild. So that's,
yeah, I just couldn't get used to the idea.
and, yeah, even then, it's like, I mean, there's, as a photographer, I think it's super cool. I would love to see one. But I think the part that's the most scary about tornadoes is there's just no warning. You maybe have you have minutes, depending sometimes, maybe not even that. So that's what's, and just potentially with our children, it's just something we would, of course, like to avoid. Would be such a stressful moment of having to, grab your family and run.
Grab all of them. Like, what if I don't have time to grab all 4 children? Like, who knows where they are, somewhere in the yard.
Yeah, just trying to collect these kids to get to the grocery store sometimes is almost an impossible task. I guess also in safety would be, people would probably be wondering about the insects and the animals.
Yes.
Of course, there is... we heard, of course, much about some mosquito-borne illnesses. Mainly the dengue fever is probably the most common, which, since we moved here, nobody seems concerned about it. We don't hear anybody having it. We have not had anything like this yet. We've been here.
I think it's probably like a flu for them here. I mean, we didn't even get sick since we moved here. It's been over 8 months we've been here. And
besides a minor cold.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like nothing from the mosquitoes.
No.
And we got bitten quite a lot, especially at the beginning, before our bodies got used to the mosquitoes here, because they're different than in different regions of the world. So, we would get like a little rash from it. It would take a little while to heal.
Mm-hmm. So there is, of course, a risk of malaria and things like that, but that's mainly restricted to like the Darien province or
Yes, in between Panama and Colombia.
Yeah, so that's not really prevalent or common throughout the country. We've heard there's a few deadly snakes, a few deadly caterpillars, things of that nature, which of course you would also find in places in Florida and things like that.
Even in Nevada, there used to be that the shaky.
Oh, a rattlesnake.
Rattlesnake, but we never seen one
we never saw it.
5 years.
So it's the sort of things where it's like as long as you're just kind of being aware of your surroundings. We haven't in our entire 8 months here on our property, we haven't seen any dangerous insect, animal, or anything.
No, I was actually quite worried about it. How it's going to be, but nothing really, not even like bigger spiders or anything. And we have quite a big yard, and we're sort of in the nature. Definitely, it's more of a jungly area, and didn't notice any issues.
Yeah, we found the only thing is we've had a short stint with scorpions, but they also didn't really make it into our house.
It was actually at the beginning of the dry season. We noticed we didn't have them before. Maybe it's just the time they're being more active.
Yeah, I noticed just one night, they kind of like, I went to go step out the door and there were 2 of them right by the doormat, like pretty close to where you'd step. And that just made me go get my UV light and go on a scorpion hunt. And I mean, I think I found 10 total maybe. And I got rid of them and we haven't had any since. So I just kind of, as soon as I noticed it seemed to be scorpion season, I went on a scorpion hunt.
My scorpion hunter.
Yeah.
Panama is the most developed country in Central America as far as infrastructure is being concerned, the quality and the offering of this main city, roads, that's a part of the infrastructure. And they also use US dollar as their main currency, even though they patriotically call it Balboa here, but it's still a US dollar.
The airport, central, it's a centrally located airport, so...
It's an international hub also because all of the goods from the world passing through Panama, or most of the goods. And
quick flights to the U.S., that's what was really nice about that.
Yes.
Do we have that as a separate section, or that's...
No, we don't have that. So, in just like a couple hours,
Yeah, we could get to, a flight from Panama City to Florida is maybe around 3 hours. And the flight we took from San Francisco to Panama City was just around 7. So those were direct flights.
Yes, I think about 4 hours to Texas.
Yeah, so really
that's
nice.
Really great.
And staying within the United States time zones as well. Direct flights even to Europe and places like that.
Yes. And Panama City compared to, for instance, San Jose in Costa Rica is appears to be much nicer from what we heard, and it's much better developed. You can find anything you want. You can find pure luxury. You can find variety of supplies and products that you need. There's really good hotels, restaurants. You have a beautiful old town, Casco Viejo. You have a very modern financial district. Basically anything you want. Many people compare it to a combination of Hong Kong and Miami.
Yeah, we were definitely surprised when we first saw that they have a luxury mall, and it just had all of the luxury brands.
Chanel, Dolce and Gabbana, anything you might need.
Yeah,
or want. Yes, we also felt like we need to go back into a little bit more adventurous lifestyle. We tried living as most people, we call it like the normal life, back in Nevada for a few years, but it just didn't work for us. We need to be a little bit more spontaneous and maybe have a slight feeling of danger.
Yeah, it just needs to feel a little, sometimes it's nice to have a feeling of it being a little chaotic and a little wild.
Not everything very much scripted and predictable.
Yeah, and whether that be your interactions daily with people, or, it's one of the things we noticed when we first arrived to Panama is you're just driving on the highway, and no matter where you look, it's just life is happening everywhere. Everyone is doing something, and that was really interesting to see because people are out more, whether that's because of just the weather here, people are outdoors more, or it's because maybe...
Yes, I think it's because also maybe that, the cell phones are sort of a new thing here for them. And, you still see a lot of people on the cell phone.
Which we've actually seen, yes, it's increased within the last year more and more.
Yeah, maybe slightly addictive. But overall, they're just used to kind of living their life. They're very interested in us, in foreigners, in the girls, in our daughters.
Yeah, so everybody's
very friendly.
You'll still see people sitting outside of their homes, just on the porch and hanging out with the family, and whether it's just talking or... just hanging out,
Yes, it's very
playing games
oriented here.
Yeah, so when you're driving by and you're seeing that, it's not everybody on their phones all the time. That is, of course, seems to be, increasing, but we can only hope that because the values in general seem to be family oriented in this country, and I think that's also in part due to also the country is Catholic, a Catholic Christian country. That helps kind of keep things around traditional family values, which is important to us. And we're not even religious, but it is important to us to have traditional family values as a priority in the country and the culture that we are living.
Yes, for the structure of society and how it functions. That also brings us maybe over in the States. It was quite hard lately to get in touch with people, meet and hang out. Everybody has been too busy. It's maybe easier for religious people that are a part of a church. Yeah,
they already have a community that they can be a part of. And if you're not, then it's sometimes a little more difficult to find a community of like-minded people. And in some place like Panama, we've kind of betted on the fact that of being able to meet more like-minded people who, especially in the expats, who have also had to relocate here or wanted to relocate here.
Yes, they maybe moved here for similar reasons like us. So there is actually a higher chance of finding like-minded people for us here than in the States.
Yeah.
In the States also, we found out lately, people prefer just being enclosed in their homes, most of them on their screens. Even on the streets where we lived, we didn't even see most of the neighbors. They would just in and out of the house. Here people are so much more open to connect, spend time together, hang out. Even the people in the store already remember us. like the lady that cuts the cheese for us. Every time we come, she asks, we chat a little bit, she smiles, she sees the girls. Whereas I feel like in the States, many of the stores I would be going, they feel like they've never seen me before. So it's just a little bit different culture.
Yeah. And by cut the cheese for us, we don't mean that she farts every time we're in there. It's a saying in the United States. I don't know if you guys have it too.
It's a first for me.
If you needed food, you'd be able to get it. And we do see a lot of grass-fed beef. A lot of people have their own chickens. Of course, you've got a year-round growing season in this climate. So stuff like that makes you feel a little more like you can, a little more comfortable. And
yes, it seems like Panama would be able to take care of hopefully all of its food needs in case something goes wrong. There's a lot of ranches where you can get beef, pork, chicken. Then there's the boquete. Then there are the higher elevations areas that have fruit and vegetable production for the whole country.
Another one was, of course, living in the United States, we've been watching over the last 4, 5, 8 years the divide happening within the people. Division, political division, and of course, from what we've been witnessing, a lot of agenda-driven division. And we've seen a lot of people and I think it doesn't matter where you stand on this side of the political spectrum, but I think everybody agrees the other side has lost their mind. And so for us, especially with our children, again, based around traditional family values, we did not like in seeing where some of the agenda was being forced onto children in schools and in television shows and in movies, and it was obviously being very subtly driven. And that was something that was important to us because we want our children to be children. So we decided to move before the 2024 election, but regardless of the outcome, we knew that even in the best case scenario, it was going to be a couple of years before the United States can maybe bring itself back to normalcy and
repair damage, bring
and repair damage. And already some of that damage that I believe has happened to the minds of a lot of American citizens may never be repaired and could take decades, to fix or to balance back out. So one of the other huge reasons we decided to move pre-2024 election is because we were watching the overall trend in the world, especially from organizations like World Economic Forum and the EU and places like this that were starting to incorporate more regulations into their citizens and countries. And that was something that was very alarming to me and us. Us together, we began to look around at places in the world.
Research. We were looking all over the world.
Yes.
Because with our passports, we could basically go live anywhere.
Exactly. And that was going to be one of the main things is what's your freedom going to be like there if it hits the fan, so to say. One of the places we first looked was Costa Rica, and I wanted to specifically look and see which countries mandated the mRNA technology that was used in the last few years. And surprisingly, Costa Rica was the first in the world to mandate it for children. And we believe in medical freedom, and that was a giant red flag for us and took Costa Rica right off our list immediately. Also was to look into which countries were supportive or considering CBDCs, the central banking digital currency. Again, that's another huge factor of whether you're moving towards freedom or moving away from it. And if you have a central banking digital currency, it can be tied to things like,
social credit score,
medical passports,
yes,
and your social credit score and things like that. And
it's no longer your money anymore.
And not only your money, but you're no longer technically really in charge of your money.
Yes.
Because the second you do something the state doesn't approve of, They can lock you out. They can excommunicate you from society.
Yes,
and that was another, that was important to know that we weren't going to be forced to have to comply with certain measures.
Unless we want to.
Yeah, with the fear of being, outcasted.
Yes. And Panama doesn't have a central bank. Therefore, the implementation of the digital currency wouldn't be as easy here.
Yes, and they didn't seem to have any plans for that in the future. So that was one of the determining factors. Definitely the lifestyle and climate.
Because we lived in Hawaii, Bryan for like over 10 years, me about 6 years. We got used to the indoor-outdoor lifestyle where we can be inside the house but outside the house at the same time. We can have the house open with natural airflow. There is a very pleasant temperature all year long. We don't have to feel like we're locked up in the house. To me, especially the last few years living in Nevada, it felt like I'm losing my life. Like I'm wasting months of my life being cooped up in a house. Nobody really wants to go out for too long because it's very cold. It takes forever to, get the coats on the children and scarves and everything. So it just felt like the summers there were really too short, and we just got fed up of it.
Yeah, I mean, Lake Tahoe is beautiful, and there's about just 2 weeks we feel like in the summer where maybe the lake is swimmable. And
I actually never swim.
I tried to get her
in Lake Tahoe. It was
5 years we were there. I tried to get her to just go dip in once, and she never did, not one time. It is similar to Hawaii in the sense of you are in a tropical climate. It does get hotter here, and as we experienced when we first moved here, even more humid.
It's the extremes between the wet and the dry season. We will talk about it more in one of our other videos.
Yes, but as it's moved the last month or so into the dry season, it's been incredibly pleasant.
Yes, we like the wet season as well, but the dry season is a light breeze. It's refreshing. Everything feels lighter. There's more sun, less clouds, and dramatically less humidity.
Yep. And so, of course, with this warmer climate is, again, a part of the lifestyle. You can feel more relaxed. You hang around in the house. Sylvie half the time's hanging around in a swimsuit, which I can't complain. I enjoy that around in my household. The last 4 years, with what's happened in the United States and over really the entire world with prices of homes going up everywhere, especially in all the beautiful touristy vacation destinations, which of course we prefer to live in, and me especially being a photographer.
Yeah. That was one of the reasons I also left Hawaii, because it just became unaffordable.
Yeah, we left Hawaii in 2018.
2017. 2018, yes.
Because we thought $3,000 a month in rent there was just ridiculous. It was too much.
Yeah, now it's probably over 10,000.
Yeah, so
the same house.
And so we were paying that in Hawaii, and then we were paying that in Carson City before we decided to move away.
Yes.
Here to Panama.
For a house that didn't even have a garden, a yard for children.
Yes.
And if I wanted to have them play in front of the house, they were basically playing on the street.
Of course, there were homes there that are the same price as what we just purchased here in Panama. You could still find homes in the 200,000s in the United States, but for example, we went and looked at a home for, what was that one? And
like over 200,000.
Over 200,000, and
like an hour and a half from
Lake Tahoe. And in the desert.
That was very depressing.
And it was basically like a mobile, or like a manufactured home that was like a 40 years old,
drug addict, rundown, manufactured home,
falling apart. You walk in, there was literally rats in the house when we toured it, and that's what we were looking. That's what was.
Yeah, that was like something over 200,000 to 250,000, maybe even 280.
Yeah, and that was I can't comprehend spending that kind of money for that.
Something that's not worth it at all.
But all these beautiful places became unaffordable over the last 4 or 5 years when people could work remotely.
Yes.
And we saw it happen.
City crowds from the Bay Area moving out.
In our area, we saw that. A lot of the Bay Area people decided that they could work remotely and live in Lake Tahoe or live in Carson City. So all the beautiful places that were in a proximity to big cities just became unaffordable over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes, even our rent almost doubled.
If you want to have proximity to a beach, proximity to some sort of even just walking trails or something beautiful to nature that isn't, hours away from a city, anything that's just seemed to be good, that like a good place to live seemed to just quadruple in value and in price.
Yes, plus sort of close to a bigger city.
Yeah.
And there was one factor, and like in nature, where you don't want to live on busy streets because we really very much enjoy being surrounded by nature.
So we found that in Panama, we could have that lifestyle that we want, and have a decently sized home that's for our large and growing family, with with an actual yard, a little bit of space. We're just under an acre that we have.
Yes, but there is nobody around us and likely not going to be, so we technically have 10 acres.
It's what
space.
It feels like. It
Yes.
feels like we have 10 acres. We don't really see our neighbors. They're kind of hidden by the trees. And then, of course, we're just, 10 minutes to the beach. And then 20 minutes to the town where we can go get grocery shopping. 30 minutes to beautiful mountains that remind me of the mountains of Honolulu on Kauai, and like a one-street small town like Honolulu. All those little things that we enjoy so much that we've learned over the years of living places like Hawaii and living even in Europe, which Panama City has a European vibe, the old town, Casco Viejo. We can have that all here for a price of what would cost for that crack den that we were looking at in Carson City.
Yes.
Or
for the price of what would be like a down payment of just like an average home in the United States.
Astronomical difference for what we consider the quality of life and home ownership between here and currently in the United States.
Yes, it takes a lot of stress also out of our shoulder. We have still tons of other stress going on, but at least not having to stress out about having to come up with like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month for just housing.
Yeah. And again, we looked many places, we considered many places in the United States. I was on Google Earth. I probably spent, 100 hours looking at every spot in the United States that looked like it could be near something beautiful, and just everything that was nice, just anything that was close to like nice, just was at least 400 or more.
Yes, and that was still sort of kind of middle of nowhere.
So we estimate that to live a similar lifestyle that we are living here with the things that we have around us, our house would probably be like at least 2-3 million.
Yes.
To find a house like this with a proximity to the beach and the nature that we enjoy.
Yes, comparable value in the States.
Yeah, and with the quality of the home. The home we bought's only 8 years old.
Yes, it's built in Western standard.
Yeah.
Unlike most Panamanian homes.
And it's a 5-bedroom, 4-bath.
We have like over 3,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Like over, yes.
Yeah, on about an acre of land.
Meters.
We were fortunate enough that in our position here, the idea was to buy a home outright, and then you don't have a mortgage payment. It's like the home is affordable enough to where you can, and a lot of people can, if they, you can just buy it outright.
Yeah, especially if you already own a piece of real estate in the Western world. For whatever you sell it, you can buy something here and you likely have quite a lot left.
Oh, and a major factor is the residency that Panama offers for United States citizens.
Panama offers a very accessible way of residency for many countries of the world under the Friendly Nations visa, which is United States and Slovakia as well as many other countries. And there are a few options, but for us it was the option through buying a piece of real estate here, which currently, as of the end of 2024, the value for the Friendly Nations visa was about $200,000. So if you buy a piece of real estate that's at least $200,000 currently, you have a legal right to apply for a residency, and then you become a legal resident of Panama. And later on, after a few years, you even have a chance to apply for a citizenship.
Yep. So very important that the country we decide to buy a home in can lead to residency there. We were diligently looking at a lot of places in the world that would fit a lot of this criteria, and Panama was it just felt right. It's just something we landed on.
If you have any further questions, please ask. We would love to answer and connect with you guys more.
Yeah, if there's anything you want to know that we didn't cover here, always the comments, open it up for discussion. We would love that. If there's something you disagree with that we said, also put it in the comments. And we chose Panama a lot too with our intuition. It just felt right.
Yes. And we're also new on YouTube, so if you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
So we probably need to build in the AC here.
Oh, it's brutally hot
For
day.
sure. I'm very hot too.
Okay,
But, be at your best.
All right.